PRISM Arcologies is a city building card game where you compete to build the best Arcology you can for your companies using prefabricated, reconfigurable, integrated structural modules, otherwise known as PRISM. This video will show you how to play the game. It will be using Tabletop Simulator because I don't have the physical game printed out and it's easier to record on Tabletop Simulator. So I'll just show you what the game looks like here. So I've got the game set up inside Tabletop Simulator. These three decks are the Prism decks, which are the modules that you'll be using to build your cities. This is the exchange board. And the main way that you'll be gaining points and interacting with the game is these contracts. There are 9 different contracts of 3 different colors in the game. And each color is a different type of district. And they will require different colors of prism to build. You will also have a starting district, and these things called pylons, which is how you connect your district cards together. You also have a player board that has 3 development tracks, and reminders of what your actions are, a tracker for your number of districts built, and trackers for your action points. It's a game that can fit 2 to 4 players, and should take about 45 minutes to 60 minutes. The other thing you also have is the HQ card or headquarters card and the starting player token, a bunch of other pylons, cubes that act as pylons, and also these agenda cards are optional that you can add the agenda module if you wanted to play with that module. So the main way to play the game is by using your actions to turn your contracts into either districts. When you build a contract into a district, you flip it over, or you upgrade an existing district with an upgrade. So if you look at a contract, there are this stripe on the left represents the upgrade. And if you have a district of the same color, you can upgrade it with an upgrade that's the same color. So that's now a comms router that has a printing station upgrade. The final thing that a contract can do is you can also put the contract onto the exchange, which will give you one-time powerful effects. Building contracts into districts gives you victory points. If you look at that, there's victory points there and also bonus victory points depending on how you build your Arcology. And building upgrades gives you the upgrade icons, which will improve your development tracks, which improve the efficiency of your actions, these icons here. And also, if you look again at the districts, when you upgrade a district, it also activates the upgraded scoring bonus. So if a district is upgraded, you will also get to score the scoring bonus that's connected to the upgrade. If this district was not upgraded, you wouldn't score that orange stripe. The other thing about upgrades is that each district can only have one upgrade, and upgrades need to match the type of the district, so they need to be of the same color. They don't have to be of the same exact district type, but they need to share a color at least. So I will get into how you actually take a turn in the game. The game is played in turns starting from the starting player, this starting player marker, and then you go clockwise. And each player takes a turn and does the 3 phases, which is the starting phase, the action phase, and the cleanup phase. And then once you've taken all your actions during the action phase, you go to cleanup, and then you pass the turn around, and the next player in turn will take their turn. You do all your actions, and then the next player will take their turn, and then do all their actions, and you keep going until the game ends. So what are the actions you can do? The main way you interact with the game is through the spending action points to activate these actions. And to do that, you will at the start of the game you have a base action point or 2 base action points, which you can spend every turn. So you just spend those action points and just say, look, I'm going to do that and I'm going to do that. You don't have to do that. That's just a way to like remind yourself what you've been doing. That isn't a mechanical reason for doing that, aside from just remembering what actions you have taken, because you can always take the same action more than once. I'll run through the actions that you can take. The first one up here is you can draw Prism equal to production. What that means is that's how you draw more cards that lets you build these contracts. So if I look here, I have a hand of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Prism. And let's say I want more. I will spend 1 action point to draw Prism equal to production. And production is driven by these development tracks. So currently my production is at the lowest level, and my production number is 2. Which means I will draw 2 Prism. So I spend 1 action point and I draw 2 Prism. So there are 3 Prism decks, so I can always choose what color of Prism I want to draw. So if I'm going to draw 2 Prism, I get to choose which colors of Prism I draw. So I'm going to draw, let's say I want to draw 2 Prism, and one of them will be orange and one will be green. So I will take both of those into my hand. And that's drawing Prism. The next thing you could do is there's a deck here that contains all the contract cards. I've just laid out these 9 contract cards as an example. I'll return them to the deck later. But basically, when you want to get more contracts, you'll be getting them from the deck. So you can spend an action point to look at the top 4 cards of the contract deck, gain 2 of them, and then return 2. So I will draw 4 contract cards. And then I can choose 2 of them to keep and 2 of them to return to the deck. I'll take these 2. And to return to the deck, you just return them either to the top or the bottom of the deck in whatever order you choose, and they will stay there. So let's say I want, for whatever reason, maybe I'm thinking of activating that action again to get the spaceport. I could put the spaceport card back on top, or I can put it on the bottom. So that's drawing more contracts. The other action you can do, and this is the main one that you'll be doing to progress in the game, is to build a contract into a district or an upgrade. To do that, you choose one of the contracts you have in front of you, and you will pay Prism to turn that contract into a district or an upgrade. When you activate, when you choose that action, you have to choose the contract and you choose what you are building. So right now I only have my starting district and a pylon. I don't have a green district that I can upgrade, so I will probably have to build the contract as a district instead. So to do that, I pay the cost in the top right. So the top right corner tells me the cost to build the contract as a district. So this requires 5 green or triangle Prism. So I'm going to build that here. And when you build a contract, you have to connect it to a pylon. And pylons are connected to the corners of each district. So one pylon basically can support up to 4 districts in this configuration. So once all 4 corners have been connected, you can no longer add more districts to that arcology. To do that, you would have to build more pylons. I'll get to building pylons in a bit. So how do you pay to build the district? If you go back, cost is in top left, so I'm going to pay by discarding Prism of that type. I can't discard any blue or orange Prism. I have to discard green Prism, and I have to discard at least 5. So luckily I have a 4 and a 1, which adds up to exactly 5, and I can build it that way. If instead I had 2 4s rather than a 4 and a 1, I would have to pay 2 4s, and that's overpaying because it was only 5, but I don't get any change. So I kind of wasted the paying 8 for it. And any prism that you use to pay for contracts, you put into the discard pile for that prism. Now, let's get that 4 back, and let's say I paid exec for it. If you look here, I have a card here called the HQ, or the headquarters card. At the start of every turn, you will gain and refresh HQ. HQ acts as kind of like the current turn marker, so whoever has the headquarters is the player taking the current turn, and it also provides some benefits. And the benefits of HQ are here. You can expand as a free action before or after any of your actions. You can expand HQ. You can do that by either flipping the HQ over or by turning it sideways to show that you've used it. To choose one of these effects, I can draw a prism, I can gain 1 contract from the top of the contract deck, or I can do the third action, which I will explain in a bit. And the benefit of paying exactly enough for your districts and your upgrades is that you get to refresh the headquarters. So say for example, before I took that action, I had expanded the headquarters card to draw a prism. Then I paid 5 prism and paid exec to build this district. That means I can then refresh the headquarters, and I can then once again choose one of the actions there, one of those free actions to take, and it wouldn't take up any of my action points. With upgrades, you pay the cost in the top left. So let's pretend I had the hinterland and offsite storage upgrade. And so the cost of this upgrade is 3. And in this case, I have a 4 left over, so I'll discard the 4 and I will put it here underneath the suburbs. So that suburbs is now an upgraded. It's a bit messy on Tabletop Simulator, but it kind of works. So that suburbs is now an upgraded district, which means that I will get the development track bonus here. I will improve my storage development track by 1 because there's 1 icon. And at the end of the game, the upgraded bonus scoring will also be activated. So I will not only score 2 victory points there, I will score 1 victory point for each adjacent district, and I'll also score 1 victory point for each adjacent residential or green district. So I'll get both bonuses if I've upgraded the district. So that's the third action. You can build the contract into a district or an upgrade. And as a reminder, you get to refresh your headquarters if you pay exec, and that also applies if you pay exec for the upgrade. So for example, if I had paid 5 for the suburbs to build the suburbs upgrade, and then I paid 5 again for the automated warehouse, I would get to refresh headquarters twice. And that is building things by discarding prism. Just gonna put this into the discard pile. Right, so if I don't have a contract that I can build or want to build, I could try and build someone else's contract by challenging them for it. So if someone else, let's pretend that this player over here, let's pretend that I am this player here. I've got my hand here, and let's pretend that this player here has a contract that I want. I want to build at Seaport instead of the marina. So what I will do is I will initiate a challenge. I'll choose the challenge action and I'll say, hey, I'm going to challenge this seaport. To initiate a challenge, you need to reveal at least 1 prism card of the matching type. So I have to reveal at least one blue prism, and that is my challenge for that contract. And I have to say whether I want to challenge it as a district or as an upgrade. Just gonna quick here. So since I have a blue district, I could, instead of challenging this as a district and building this as a new district, I could instead challenge this as a upgrade and say, hey, I want the upgrade instead, and I'm going to offer 1 blue prism for it. If I'm successful, I can then build that upgrade. I can win the challenge and build the upgrade. However, I do need to be able to build it. It's similar for when you're challenging as a district. You need to have a free pylon that's able to support a district before you initiate the challenge. So you make sure you are actually able to build whatever it is you're challenging for before you challenge. So if I initiate the challenge this way, let's now pretend that I'm also the defender, and then the person who is being challenged can choose to defend the challenge or to just give the card away. If they defend the challenge, they need to reveal enough prism that's at least 1 more than the challenge. So if they had challenge with 1, I can reveal 2, and then I would be the winner of the defender would be the winner of the challenge. And even though I initiated the challenge, if the defender wins the challenge, they get to build it instead. And they need to be able to build whatever it is you're challenging for. So if you were challenging it as a district, then I successfully defend, and then I would then build it into a district as well. Or if you had challenged this for as a upgrade, then I would have to build it as an upgrade. The loser of the challenge, so the winner of the challenge gets to build whatever it is that's being challenged, and the loser of the challenge gets all the cards in the challenge into their hand. So, for example, if I had challenged in a 4 and this other player had defended with a 5, as the initiator of the challenge and the loser, I get to keep my initial card, and I also get all the cards that were paid as part of the challenge. This works if I successfully challenge here and you didn't want to defend it. You would get the prism card into your hand as the loser of the challenge. So challenging is a way for you to kind of increase your options and build whatever you need to, not just from the contracts in front of you, but looking at the contracts of all the other players as well. And there's also a chance to get a contract for really cheap, but there's the risk that if they successfully defend, then you've kind of given them a free action to build a contract or upgrade. So you got to keep that in mind when you are challenging. So the other thing that you can do with contracts, as I mentioned before, is you can actually put a contract onto the exchange to activate a matching exchange ability. What that means is, look at the exchange board here, and I can put a contract that I have. Let's say I have a seaport and the suburbs here in front of me. As an action, I can activate one of these exchange abilities that matches one of the contracts that I give up. So I spend that action point and I'm going to give up the suburbs into the exchange, and then I will activate the green residential exchange ability, which is to build a pylon. I can then build one of my contracts as an upgrade for free if its cost is less than or equal to 4. And that upgrade does not need to match the district's type. So that's a pretty powerful effect. And also, if you'll notice, I haven't talked about building pylons because going to the exchange, putting contracts onto the exchange is the only way to build pylons and expand your Arcology. So once you put a card onto the exchange, you activate whatever it says and then you leave the card there. You've given up a contract in exchange for a pylon and a power. You can actually pull cards back out of the exchange, and I'll get to that in a bit. But first, we'll go into what happens in cleanup, because at the end of the turn, all contracts that are on the exchange get flipped over into districts. So you can never get upgrades or contracts back out of the exchange, because the action that you will do to take cards out of the exchange is to return a contract to take a district from the exchange. You're basically exchanging one of your contracts. I'm going to put that either on top or on the bottom of the contract deck, return one, and I can take a district out of the exchange and build it. You follow the same rules for building. You need to connect it to a pylon, you need to have a space that you can build, and you can take districts out of the exchange that way. Again, I mentioned you can't take a contract out of the exchange. You can only take districts. So those are the 6 actions that you can take. At the end of the turn, there's a couple other things that happen as well. If you look at your development track, you know that increasing production means your actions become more efficient. Like when you take the draw prism action, you get to draw more and more prism, so that's good. The storage determines how many prism cards you can keep in your hand, because during the cleanup phase, you will discard any prism that is above your storage limit. So right now, my storage limit is, if my storage limit is 5, I'm safe, I've got 5. Otherwise, if my storage limit is lower, I would have to discard one of those cards in the discard pile. And I can't keep that many prism in hand. The other thing that you need to do is to manage your management level, and that determines how many contracts you will have in front of you. During the cleanup phase, you set your contracts to your management level. So you always have contracts in front of you exactly equal to your management level at the end of your turn. So if you have, so right now, like I mentioned, these are just for illustration purposes. I'm just going to move them away. So right now in front of me as a player, I have no contracts in front of me. So during the cleanup phase, my management level is 2. I will draw 2 new contracts. If, however, I had 1 contract already, I would instead just draw that 1 spaceport to bring me up to 2. Or if I had, say, 4 contracts because I took the draw contracts action, I would have to discard 2 contracts down. So I would be returning those cards either to the top or bottom of the contract deck, and I will have exactly 2 contracts at the end of my turn. So once I've taken all my actions, the play then passes to the next player, and during the start of their turn, they will gain and refresh the headquarters card. I'll give the headquarters card away, and then it is now that player's turn to take actions. So that is basically it. You keep playing until the game ends, and the game end triggers are if the contract deck ever runs out. So the moment any player draws the last card out of the contract deck, that triggers the end of the game. But the game doesn't end immediately. The game always ends on the turn of the player to the right of the starting player. So you always have a same amount of turns. Every player gets the same amount of turns. So if let's say for example, if yellow had ended the game, then red and teal will still get a turn. However, if teal ended the game, then that's the end of the game. The other way, and the more common way, I think, that you will end the game is by building 9 districts. So you already have 1 district built. This is your starting district, and once you've built an additional 8 to have a total of 9, and that's just counting districts, whether or not they're upgraded, that triggers the end of the game. You'll also notice that there's a tracker here to track how many districts you've built, and why that's important is because that's how you unlock your additional action points. So once I've built my 3rd or technically 4th district, once I have 4 districts built, I now get to take 3 actions a turn. You don't gain your base action points until the start of your turn. So if I build a 4th district on my turn, I wouldn't be able to use my 3rd action point until my next turn. But obviously that's pretty good because you'll get more actions per turn. And once you have 7 districts built, you unlock your 4th action point, and you can take 4 actions every turn. And that's pretty much the game. I'll go through a little bit on scoring at the end of the game, depending on how you built your arcology. You have different, gain victory points for, as I mentioned here, there's victory points for each district that you build. They are worth victory points themselves, printed on a card, and they will also have a bonus scoring. So that that comms router industrial district will give you a bonus 1 victory point for each connected pylon. So there are 2 connected pylons to this district, so you would get 2 bonus victory points. And this is not upgraded, so I would not be able to get the upgraded bonus scoring. However, if it was, I would get 1 victory point for each adjacent district, and because we only count orthogonal, that would still not get me any victory points. So if you look at the district types, each district type, if you look at the residential districts, all of them have the same bonus, base bonus that they will get. Same here with the industrial ones. All of them get a bonus for connecting pylons. The green residential districts have bonuses for being close to other districts, and the coastal districts give you bonus victory points for being adjacent to empty spaces. So you want to build them onto the corners, and they will be worth a lot of points if there's nothing surrounding a coastal district. And the upgraded bonus scoring also follows a theme. So the blue ones only give a static victory point. The coastal districts, the residential districts look for different colors adjacent to them, and the industrial districts kind of like repeat some of the scoring. So this one lets you score as if it was a residential. The factory lets you score as if it was another industrial district, and the spaceport lets you score as if it was a coastal district. So those are the 9 types of contracts in the contract deck. There's also other optional rules, like I mentioned, the agendas. You can choose to play with agendas here, which are just bonus goals that you will try to get. The first player to achieve a goal at the end during the cleanup phase, they can claim one of the agendas. However, if another player claims the agenda, if another player meets the requirement for an agenda, that agenda then gets turned face down. So you want to get those as soon as you can, but if someone else gets it, then no one gets it. That's an optional agenda. The other thing as well here is this exchange board is double-sided. So on side A, each type of contract has a specific type of bonus that you get, whereas on side B, the type of bonus you get depends on the number of cards, either contracts or districts, that are in the exchange. So if I put a orange industrial contract onto the exchange, I can activate the 1+ card bonus. And if I have more than that, so if I ended up with there were 2 districts already in there, and then I put a third card into the exchange, I put a contract onto the exchange, I can then choose to instead activate the second power. So that's the double-sided exchange board. And also you could choose to kind of ignore the bonus scoring for the upgrades if that's for your first game, just because like there's quite a lot of moving parts already. So if you wanted to, you could just play an optional rule. Just do a simple that the upgrades just give the bonuses to the development tracks. The starting districts are also double-sided. So when you start the game, you choose which side you want your starting district to be. And that also determines how many pylons start with built. So the aviation hub starts with 1 pylon built attached to it, and you start with 4 prism in hand, but there's a bonus where it counts as any district type for scoring or for upgrades. The other side instead lets you start with 2 built pylons. So I would start with pylons built here, and I would start with 5 prism in hand. But this district cannot be upgraded. So at the start of the game, everyone starts with 1 starting district, and then everyone also starts with 2 randomly drawn contracts, or you could choose to draft the contracts, and you start with your starting prism in hand by just choosing to draw that many prism once you've looked at your starting contracts. So that's pretty much the game. There's also tiebreakers. If you end the game and add up all your victory points and you find that there's a tie, you then add up the total number of cards and pylons that you built, add up your districts, upgrades that you've built, and whoever has built the more things into their arcology wins the tiebreaker. If there's still a tie, then the game is won by the player is furthest away from the starting player. I actually just realized that I forgot to explain one last ability on the headquarters. So when you activate the headquarters, you can also, instead of just drawing a prism or gaining a contract from the top of the contract deck, you could also discard a contract to get a district from the exchange. However, the headquarters version of this action is a bit weaker in that you have to discard a matching district type. So if I wanted to take a industrial district out of the exchange, I would have to return a industrial contract. I couldn't return an industrial contract and take a coastal district, for example. So the headquarters version of that power is a little bit limited, but it's still worth it if you have a lot of different types of contracts. So that's the game. It's a city building game with multi-use cards, and it awards careful planning and tactical play to kind of like pay exact and get the most out of your headquarters free actions, and also figuring out the best configuration that you can based on the contracts that you can get, and also looking out for when you can go to the exchange, or when you can challenge other players for cheaper districts or upgrades. If you wanted to find out more about the game, you can check out the itch.io page where you can get the print and play files, and you can also get the files that can be used to recreate the game in Tabletop Simulator. And you can also contact me on Twitter as @AaronLime on there. And yeah, I hope check out PRISM Arcologies. I think it's a game. Enjoy.